No, I'm doing it now. Yeah, heads Dolidze, tails Hernandez. Looks like I'm going with Hernandez. Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who puts a lot of thought into his analysis. And I'm here to break down UFC on ESPN 70 fuck Dolidze versus Hernandez. I'm going to give you the breakdown of each fight, predictions, and bets. Okay, opening up the card, we have Gabriela Fernandez versus Julia Stoliarenko, otherwise known as Yulia Emelianenko. And my prediction for this fight is Gabriela Fernandez wins, and I'm going to go with her winning by round two rear naked choke. And I'm not going to pick it to happen so suddenly like it did in her last fight over Wang Tong. Uh, but I still think she will win down the stretch against Stoliarenko. Of course, a decision wouldn't surprise me. So I'm not married to the finish, but yeah, I'll look to play the finish in one way or another. Speaking of which, the under is not enticing to me. The over under is available right now, minus 190 pretty much for under 2.5 rounds. And Yulia Stoliarenko at plus 340. I'm not playing that, but she is such a one trick pony that I will look to play her by submission in round one and maybe a sprinkle on round two. But I think that's her only path to victory, really, an early submission. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think she is that dangerous where it's possible, but I've got Gabriela Fernandez winning the jiu-jitsu battle. So I'm more intrigued by her odds by finish down the stretch. But she's such a big favorite that I might not end up playing that anyway. I don't know. I've got to wait to see what everything looks like. But Gabrielle Fernandez is definitely the pick. She's been defeated a few times. Maria Silva's a good fighter. That was years ago, though. In the UFC, Teresa Bleda and Jasmine Jasdavicius, who could be fighting for a title soon. And Bleda, I don't know, she's been injured or whatever, but a lot of promise with her. She's young. But they're both big, monstrous wrestlers. I mean, they're really tall, giraffe type of fighters, but they're wrestlers and they were able to smother Gabriela Stoliarenko. I don't think that's a path to victory for her. She's got I think she's got shit going on the feet, but I still have Gabriela Fernandez beating her up, especially over the course of 15 minutes. And on the ground, same thing. She's got a small window where I can't even say she has an advantage, but she's definitely dangerous. And then after that, that window is shut, and Gabriela Fernandez, I think, is going to dominate her. Stoliarenko, she's got a record of 11-8. Of the 11 victories, 10 of them come by submission, and she's got one decision. And of those submissions, the overwhelming majority are by armbar in round one, just about every one of them, or I think even every one of them. And yeah, that's what I mean by a one trick pony. And yeah, she's got a split decision victory in a 5 round fight, no less, but still, she is a one trick pony by and large. Her losses, she's got 8 of them, 5 of them are finishes. She's only been submitted once. That was against Julia Avila in round 3. But I still think Gabriela Fernandez, as dangerous as she is with her striking and ground and pound, I think she is a jiu-jitsu girl first and foremost. And I think the submission would come before the knockout. Again, I'm not married to that submission over knockout or even finish over decision. I think she just takes over and dominates after round one pretty much. But yeah, Julia Stoliarenko, she's been dangerous enough. She's gotten wins to keep her afloat. Big one over Molly McCann 2 years ago, but she's largely been inactive and she's largely been defeated. And a lot of her losses are down the stretch, her fading. Round three losses here, and in her last one to Luana Carolina. And that's what I'm picking to happen here, even though I'm picking her to win to lose in round two. But yeah, I've got Gabriella. I think she's really solid, well rounded, where she's not going to, and she's not vulnerable anywhere, not a weak chin, not a weak body. And I think she's actually got phenomenal body shots, Gabriela Fernandez, and she's used them to put girls away in the past. But I think Gabriella will win this fight with her jiu-jitsu once Stoliarenko fades. and the inactivity won't help Julia Stoliarenko. Next up, we have Gilbert Urbina versus Uros Medic. My prediction for this fight is Uros wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by knockout in round two. I think Gilbert Urbina is going to come out of the gate strongly like he typically does. He's got height and reach. He's got some nice physical advantages, but I think that's going to keep him afloat on the feet early. And I think, of course, he's going to be the one trying to mix it up and take it to the ground. And with his aggressive style, he might be able to do that. But if he's not able to close the show with one takedown, I think Uros Medic takes over the fight and eventually takes him out. Medic has a very dangerous record, and both guys, frankly, are vulnerable. They've both been finished a few times in recent years. But in between the losses, Medic has won in the last few years. He's been winning fights, and I think he's a more dangerous guy anyway. So between two vulnerable guys, I'll take his danger to make good on that vulnerability and get him a victory here. He What the fuck was the point I was trying to make? Oh, yeah, he's got 10 finishes in his 10 victories. 2 by submission, triangle chokes early in his career. That's right. I know his fucking record. And he's got 8 TKOs, of course. We've seen him get him as deep as round 3, the 13th minute of the fight there against Matthew Semmelsberger in a fucking war with a spinning back fist. Also, round 2 against Omar Morales. But, of course, a good share of him coming round 1, as he's a very dangerous guy. He's been knocked out now. He's knocked out against Punahele Soriano. Soriano just steamrolled him. That's a guy that was fighting at 185 and kicked ass so far at welterweight. So who knows how good that loss will look in the future. But, still, he's a good fighter, and they didn't get a chance to test their skills against each other. Soriano just went through his chin. It's not the best look for Uros Medic looking forward, but it's the only time he's been finished by knockout, even though Semmelsberger had him hurt and Jalen Turner nearly had him knocked out. It's a submission victory for Jalen Turner, but it was halfway to a TKO at least. So there's definitely doubt with Uros Medic. But again, the lights have only been shut once, and the lights have been shut with on Gilbert Urbina a few times as well. And like I said, between the two of them, Medic is the more dangerous guy, so he's my pick. I also think he's the sharper striker. Gilbert Urbina was knocked out in his last fight against Charlie Radke. At this point, that's a year and a half ago. He's probably recovered, but yeah, he should have been back in there already. Charlie Radke's a dangerous guy with that left hook. It's really sharp, and he was able to clip Urbina a few times and get him out of there in round 1. Urbina was also knocked out in 2021 against Tresean Gore, whose striking I have zero faith in after last week. But Tresean Gore knocked him out in round 2. And yeah, that's 2 losses by knockout in the last 4 years, and also like the last 4 fights. So there's concerns with Gilbert Urbina and his durability, even more so than with Uros Medic. He was submitted as well against Brian Battle. That was a few fights ago in the Ultimate Fighter finale because Tresean Gore got injured or whatever happened there. And of course, his one loss before coming to the UFC was to Sean Brady. It was a clean decision loss, but I didn't think Gilbert Urbina looked bad. Of course, he survived Sean Brady, and he kept trying to make shit happen down the stretch, but Brady's Brady. But yeah, his signature win so far is Orion Koshi. Koshi's already out of the UFC, and he's too inactive to really trust. There are no odds yet, but my pick is Uros Medic wins. I think Gilbert Urbina, his best chance of winning is probably on the ground, and I do think he's going to hit a takedown early. He comes out of the gate pretty hot, but I think after round 1, Medic is going to be the cleaner man on the feet, and he's going to make good on that vulnerability and knock him out. Okay, next up we have Priscilla Cachoeira taking on Jocelyn Edwards. My prediction for this fight is Jocelyn Edwards wins, and I'm going to go with her winning by round 3 submission, just because I'd like for that prop bet to hit. But certainly a decision wouldn't surprise me. I think Jocelyn Edwards is the cleaner fighter. I think she's definitely better on the ground. Not that she's Jasmine Jasdavicius, the last girl to run through Priscilla Cachoeira on the ground. But I think she's better overall as a fighter. She's clean on the feet, will keep herself safe from Vanderlei Silva, and I think take over this fight and get Priscilla Cachoeira down and make her pay when she's fatigued. Cachoeira is Vanderlei Silva. She's got 8 knockouts and her 13 victories, which is fucking great for a woman. Very dangerous woman, and a lot of those wins are just knockouts, as you see here with her last one over Josiane Nunes. That's listed as a punch because that's how she finished it, with a solo punch. But she also took out Ariane Lipski da Silva a few years ago, and Shanna Dobson, Gina Mazzani, not as good there, but still, the danger factor is there for Cachoeira. She can turn the fight around with one shot, like very few women can. But Jocelyn Edwards, she's never been knocked out. In fact, she was only finished once, and it was by submission, and that's in her first loss, I believe. Yes, way back 10 years ago, and she avenged that loss with an armbar a year after that. But yeah, since then, it's been nothing but decision losses, and to very good fighters, UFC fighters, and Sarah Alpar outside the UFC, but she's a UFC fighter. Jocelyn Edwards, yeah, she's been pinned and she's been out wrestled and out hustled. And I don't think that's a path to victory for Priscilla Cachoeira here. I think Jocelyn Edwards will be playing that role. And on the feet, again, she's clean, good kicking game. I think danger is certainly not on her side here, but she's also very tough, Jocelyn Edwards. So I've got her resisting this fight turning into a brawl and outpointing and eventually finishing Priscilla Cachoeira. She did have a nice round 3 submission over Tamiris Vidal, a face crank at the very end of round 3. And that's kind of what I'm looking for here against Priscilla Cachoeira. Cachoeira, she's been finished down the stretch quite a few times. She also got a nice knockout, an even nicer finish, really, over Chelsea Chandler in her last win. That was a great round 1 finish, and that's something she really needed. Now she's got a lot of momentum. She hadn't finished anybody before those 2 losses since she made it to the UFC. Her last finish was 5 years ago outside the UFC. So, yeah, she's got a lot of momentum, looking increasingly more dangerous. And here I've got to pick that danger to come through more in the way of the Tamiris Vidal fight. Because, again, Cachoeira, she's Vanderlei Silva, and she's never been knocked out. So I'm thinking Jocelyn Edwards will be more inclined to fight the other way. As for the bet, I've played Jocelyn Edwards' money line. She's a 3-1 favorite. I don't love the line, but figured I'd ruin a parlay with it. And now the over-under is available. You know, when I'm talking about a finish, round 3 finish even, I'm actually talking about it being perhaps over half that round. I think, regardless, I couldn't trust the over-under set at 2.5 rounds even. But I still think if she does get a finish, it is down the stretch in general. And I'm picking that to happen. Jocelyn Edwards is the pick. I'll wait for the props, but right now, I just got her money line. Next up, we have Elijah Smith versus Toshiomi Kazama. My prediction here is Elijah Smith wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by knockout in round 1. And the basis for the prediction has to be largely that I have doubt in the chin of Toshiomi Kazama. He's a guy whose record I will pull up here. He's been knocked out 3 times, and they're in his last 5 fights. They were all pretty close together. 2 in the UFC against Rinya Nakamura and Garrett Armfield. Obviously, no shame there. And he also got knocked out a year before that with a flying knee. Which, yeah, you can dismiss that too. No shame. Anybody could go down to a flying knee. But it's still no coincidence that he's got 3 knockout losses in the last 3 years. So there's major doubts in Toshiomi Kazama, and they haven't been erased since his win over Charalampos Gregorio. That was a very impressive victory, but Charalampos, who I believe has been cut from the UFC, He was a notorious front runner. He's a guy who faded, and he wasn't the best all around MMA fighter. I think Elijah Smith, he's definitely not the most established MMA fighter. He's only got 9 fights altogether, and that's why I wouldn't go trusting his money line. He's such a big favorite here, and things can definitely go wrong when you're inexperienced. But I still really like the way he looked in his last fight. I thought he erased a lot of my doubt that I had in him, scratching and clawing for a victory over Vince Morales. I picked Vince Morales to win, and I picked him to win because he's a durable, versatile, dangerous guy. And I thought with all of his experience, he would be the one outlasting Elijah Smith, whose only previous loss came in round 3 to Junior Cortez, who's a really good fighter and definitely somebody he should not have been fighting in his third fight at 20 years old or whatever. But that's between him and his management. But also, he slowed down on the Contender Series against this guy, Aaron Tao. He was definitely cruising to a victory anyway, but Tao was taking it to him in round 3 and forcing him to panic wrestle a little. And I just thought, yeah, with the way he's looked in these 8 fights, his 9th fight here against Vince Morales is going to be a much different look. And instead, he outlasted Vince. Vince Morales, when it looked like he was taking control of the fight, in round 3, Elijah Smith came back. Of course, he shattered his nose and took him down and showed he had wrestle and hustle and all that horse shit. He showed he had cardio, and he got the biggest win of his career at 22 years old. So yeah, I think Elijah Smith has a lot of upside. I think the wrestling's going to help him keep control of this fight, and I would pick him to win the decision if you told me it went the distance. But I've got him winning by knockout. Toshiomi Kazama, as for his paths to victory, he is the better grappler. Toshiomi Kazama is definitely the better submission artist anyway. He moves like a fish in water on the ground. He can chain submissions together. But I think Elijah Smith, again, is going to be dictating this fight. I think Toshiomi Kazama, of course, if he gets on top of Smith, he's got a lot of options. And even if Smith gets on top of him, he can maneuver and find a submission. But I think that window is going to shut as Elijah Smith starts beating him up a little bit. And I would think Elijah Smith wins that fight anyway, but the fight I envision him winning is one that doesn't take place on the ground at all. I think Toshiomi Kazama's chin is very fragile, and I think Elijah Smith is going to go through it pretty quickly. So, yeah, as for the bet, I haven't bet on Elijah Smith. He's too big of a favorite. I've bet on the under here, under 1.5 rounds, which I'm not crazy about, but when my bet is specifically on a chin failing, yeah, I don't mind it. And of course, I'll wait for the props to see if I want to place any more serious bets, what the Elijah Smith knockout lines look like. Next up, we have Rafael Cerqueira taking on Julius Walker. Cerqueira. I don't know. My prediction for this fight is Julius Walker wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by TKO in round 2. And I've got that happening on the ground, to be honest, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happened on the feed either. I think Rafael Cerqueira hasn't looked good in the UFC. I don't think he's UFC level. And even though Julius Walker has half his experience, I think he's going to be the guy who hangs around the UFC and makes a career out of it. He's only 6-1, Julius Walker, and of course his one loss comes in his last fight, a really close fight in his UFC debut against Alonzo Menafield, who's older and whatever and blah blah blah, but he's been around for a while, and there's no shame in losing that fight. And of course, before that, he had a perfect record, got 3 consecutive victories that were very nice. Triangle armbar over Niall Bartling, and then beat Bevon Lewis, former UFC fighter, by TKO, and Myron Dennis by TKO on the ground. That's where he gets things done. And even as an amateur, his only 2 losses were by decision. And this split here was a 5-round split decision loss to a good fighter, Tristan Overvig, who really just out-wrestled him. But that guy's good. And yeah, Julius Walker is good. And I've got him beating Rafael Cerqueira, who's only lost twice, but they're both in the UFC, to Ibo Aslan and Modestas Bukauskas. Two very good fighters, and obviously two UFC fighters, even though Ibo Aslan with that last fight, whatever. But yeah, those are forgivable, but still, it's not like he wasn't destroyed. He was destroyed twice, and he still doesn't. He has a great resume, a great record before that, but not a great resume. Doesn't have that signature win. He's got violence and danger, but Julius Walker again has never been finished, and he stood tall when he was tired against Alonzo Menafiel, and was able to stand up to that danger. So I've got him surviving any dicey moments in the first few minutes and then getting the better of Cerqueira. I think Julius gets on top of him, and he's got a whole world of options there. But even on the feet, he's tough as fuck, and I think Cerqueira is not. So Walker is definitely the pick, and Walker is definitely not the bet. Um, Not inclined to bet on Cerqueira. Maybe I'll put a penny or two on him winning by round one TKO, because I think that's definitely his primary path to victory. But I think Julius Walker gets him out of there. I would pick it to happen in the first round and a half, I guess, but that's a shitty line. So in general, I'm just staying away from this until the props drop and I blow all my money on shit I have no faith in. Up next, we have Eric Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan. My prediction here is Christian Leroy Duncan wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. I'm still putting my faith in the durability of Eric Anders for that prediction. But of course, Eric Anders is now 38 years old, and Christian Leroy Duncan is a very dangerous guy, especially when he starts opening up down the stretch, feeling his groove or whatever the fuck. Then, yeah, he can open up with some funky shit and perhaps get Eric Anders out of there. But no doubt the pick is Christian Leroy Duncan to win. Of course, he's much better shape athletically at 30 years old than Eric Anders at 38. And I think he's much better on the feet, Christian Leroy Duncan. And that's why I'm picking him to win here. Eric Anders, his path to victory is slowing this fight to a crawl. Let me pull up his odds here. He's a 4-1 underdog. As tempting as that is for me to put a sprinkle on it, I'm going to wait till the props drop and just play him winning by decision, because I consider that far and away his primary path to victory. Pinning Christian Leroy Duncan and making this a physical fight, a grueling fight, whether it's in the clinch or on the ground. Eric Anders is a strong guy still, even at 38. And he's a well-rounded guy. He's only got one submission, but he's a very confident grappler, Eric Anders, a jiu-jitsu black belt. And I think he's definitely got something to offer Christian Leroy Duncan there. But nobody's been able to finish Christian Leroy Duncan. He's rock solid as a pro and as an amateur. And he's 30 years old, like I said, in much better shape athletically. And on the feet, he's got a distinct technical advantage there. So I've got him outlasting and styling on Eric Anders. Anders has only ever finished once by strikes, and it was in round three against Thiago Santos. It was actually after round three, but he was like, he couldn't even stand. He was ice skating on his way back to the corner, and the fight was stopped. It was an excellent showcase of his toughness and his chin to some extent, but he was beaten down in that fight. That's the only time it's ever happened, though. And again, he did make it the full 15 minutes, even in that TKO loss. That was a 5-round fight. And his one submission loss, Eric Anders, is to Andre Muniz's armbar, the same thing that got Jacare out of there. So no shame there. He's definitely got jiu-jitsu on his side in this matchup, I'd say, Eric Anders. But the pick is Christian Leroy Duncan. And like I said, he's phenomenal down the stretch. He opens up a lot of nice finishes, 2 second-round finishes in the UFC here, and he steamrolled Dusko to get things started. But he's got some funky shit, flying knees and spinning kicks and things, and he's, I think, going to grow in confidence and take over this fight. As for His line, yeah, he's way too big of a favorite. I don't love that. And the over under I consider about right. Christian Leroy's Duncan is very dangerous. So it wouldn't completely surprise me if he was the second one to get the TKO finish over Eric Anders. And I think it would be with him styling on him down the stretch. But my pick is decision. And I have not bet on the over. Maybe I'll wait for the props and see whatever. I might just play a sprinkle on Eric Anders by decision and leave this one alone. But the pick is definitely Christian Leroy Duncan. Okay, which way should I go for this one? Next up or up next? What do you guys think? I think I'm going to go with next up. We have Jean Matsumoto versus Miles Johns. My prediction for this fight is Miles Johns wins, and I've got him winning by decision. And I'm not too confident in that prediction. But of course, he's a chunky underdog, and I don't have to be too confident to bet on a chunky underdog. And I already have. And I'll wait for the point spread and everything else as well. Because I do think if he was to lose, it'd still be a close fight, and I would expect it to go the distance. Even though Miles Johns has been finished a few times, which I'll get to. But at the same time, Jean Matsumoto, he's never been finished. His one loss is to Rob Font by razor close decision. So he's got a very pretty record, but he's been hurt plenty of times throughout his career, dropped and mounted, and he's been tested. And that's what makes me respect him so much. He's been tested and he's battled his way back. A lot of late finishes, a lot of grueling decisions. And yeah, he's definitely a battle tested fighter for a 25-year-old. But I still think here he's going to run into a very difficult test in Miles Johns, where again, even if he wins, I don't envision this being lopsided. I think Miles Johns is going to have wrestling to offer that Rob Font does not have. Rob Font has always been a little vulnerable in that department defensively. And not, I'm not saying Miles Johns can't be taken down. I've seen all the times he has been taken down. And I know it's possible. And I actually expect it to happen here with Jean Matsumoto. But I do think in general, he's not going to be dominating Miles on the ground. I think Miles will be getting up, defending takedowns largely, and even trying to mix in some of his own, at least according to the interview that I listened to. But Miles Johns is not always the most reliable wrestler. I definitely don't have faith in his willingness to wrestle, especially once the fight gets going and the lungs get pumping. But I still know he's got wrestling talent. And I think even on instinct alone, just defensively or whatever, his wrestling will show up in this fight. And I'm expecting that to be the difference stylistically from the Rob Font fight, which again is a great loss for Jean Matsumoto. And on the feet, Miles Johns, he's got a lot of potential there as well. He's not the striker, not the boxer that Rob Font is. I'm not just going to compare these two fights, but, it is a very relevant fight. But yeah, Miles Johns, he doesn't have the boxing of Brad Katona either, and he won't match the volume of these guys, especially once they get going. But he's got pop in his punches. He's got power. And I'm not just talking about his knockouts, which we've seen, some nice ones in round 3, but even in his decisions, his power is often the difference. And it's got a way of slowing down his opponent. And Miles Johns is also an effective counter striker, single shots and things, but he's comfortable on the back foot. I think he's going to handle pressure well with his defensive wrestling and counter striking. But I know he's going to be looking to not just play the matador doing counter striking and shit. He's going to be looking to attack and take down Jean Matsumoto. And I do think he's got the potential still to be an offensive wrestler, be a bully in there, even though he doesn't always fight like that. Jean Matsumoto, like I've said, he's never been finished. And his one loss really could have gone the other way as well to Rob Font, who is above Miles Johns and above a lot of fighters. He's one of the best fighters in the past however many years he's been in the UFC. It's like 35 or something. But yeah, he's a dangerous guy himself, Jean Matsumoto. Jean Matsumoto, he's got definitely more submission prowess. He's got some TKOs early in his career, but I'd be surprised if he put away Miles Johns with strikes. Johns has been knocked out once, and it was against Mario Batista, who caught him with a big jumping knee and then put him away with punches. And he was only ever submitted once, and it was against John Castaneda, which I would say that's more the path to victory here. But even in that fight, John Castaneda took over in the second half and hurt him on the feet and dropped him, and then ended up going through him on the ground in an exhausting third round. But yeah, he's proven he can win down the stretch. That Dan Argetta victory was incredible for Jean Matsumoto. That was a grueling clinch fight with a lot of physical grappling. And Dan Argetta was working him with takedowns, but he got him out of there with a guillotine, with exhausted arms, I'm sure, in the 10th minute of the fight. And almost down to the second there of 10 minutes. So yeah, he's definitely a very respectable fighter, but he's been hurt, he's been dropped, he's been mounted, he's been tested, and even though he's 16-1, he's a beatable guy, and I think Miles Johns is going to give him a hell of a fight, and I've got him walking away with a decision victory. I bet on Miles Johns. I'll wait for the point spread and all that other horse shit. Let's go. Next up, we have Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. My prediction for this fight is Christian Rodriguez wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. Having said that, I don't know if I'll be betting on him at all. This might be one of those fights where I only put a small bet on Fili by decision, because I consider that his only path to victory, and he's a big enough underdog at almost 2-1. But my pick is definitely C-Rod. He's the younger guy, and he's a guy who's seasoned well beyond his years and experience. I mean, this guy, I saw it from the beginning. He's very comfortable with guys pressuring him, even bigger guys. And of course, now he's fighting at that bigger weight class, 145, since he had a lot of trouble at bantamweight. But I still think he's an incredible fighter. He doesn't have that true featherweight physicality or power to really threaten Andre Fili, where Andre Fili has been knocked out a few times before. He's been knocked out throughout his career, but as of late, it's been Dan Ige and Joe Anderson Brito who took him out. And Christian Rodriguez is not those guys. He is not on their level of danger. He's an excellent striker and an excellent all-around fighter, but he makes his way doing other shit. He makes his way by being Mr. Round 3. C-Rod's got excellent cardio, and he's very fucking tough as well. He's only been finished once so far. I mean, he doesn't have the resume that Andre Fili has, but the only guy to finish him is Julian Erosa with his guillotine choke. So C-Rod still has a hell of a chin, and I still consider him very tough to submit. And it's not like he hasn't been worked and pressured throughout his career, but he's been able to handle it from Jonathan Pierce, Isaac Dolgarian, and he's always battling hard in the end of those fights. Really took it to both guys in round 3, even though Pierce ended up reclaiming control. But yeah, he's Mr. Round 3. I think still technically, though, this is going to be a close fight, and I think it is going to be a technical fight because, again, I don't think C-Rod has the danger to go through Andre Fili. Fili has been submitted a few times. Mel Costa got him out of there with a guillotine, which was a nice reminder that he could be submitted. Because before that, I believe it was fucking, what's his name there? Godofredo Pepe, right? Godofredo Pepe, I know my shit. See, if you're watching the video and it's syncing up. Yeah, Godofredo Pepe and Max Holloway got him out of there 10 years ago. But of course, he was submitted against Mel Costa. It can happen with C-Rod. He can get him out of there. But if it's by TKO, knockout, or submission, or even disqualification, I'll bet you it happens in round fucking 3. So yeah, maybe I'll put something on that prop. But I still don't expect him to get the finish. I just think C-Rod can mix it up. I think he can handle himself on the feet, even though Fili's very much going to be in the kickboxing battle. And I feel he's no slouch as a grappler either. But I think C-Rod's going to be the one mixing it up and getting the better of him there. And I've got C-Rod in a close fight, outlasting and outworking Andre Fili to win a decision. Again, he's Mr. Round 3, and even against an incredibly seasoned UFC fighter for over a decade like Andre Fili, who's still not too old at all. He's 35 years old. All right, he's not young, but I still think C-Rod is the better man in round 3, even against that kind of veteran. So C-Rod by decision is the pick, and the bets, who fucking knows? Next up, we have Yasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill. My prediction for this fight is Angela Hill wins, and I'm going to go with her winning by decision. And the basis for the prediction is Neil Magny won on Saturday. So stands to reason that Angela Hill is going to win as well. And if you're wondering if this is all about the fact that they're black, mostly yes. But they are both seasoned, battle tested veterans, unlike anybody else in their divisions. There's got to be somebody that competes with Neil and maybe even Angela Hill, fucking Tisha Torres or something. But Angela Hill is the Iron Woman, and she's looked incredible as she's turned 40 or close enough, whatever she is now, 39 years old. And she's definitely evolved from the point where she got into the UFC. Yeah, she's 40 years old now. She got to the UFC and she was submittable. She was fighting excellent fighters from the beginning, Carla Esparza in her first fight on The Ultimate Fighter. But she was submittable and she was takedownable. And now, after a while, she became not submittable, where she can hang in there with Mackenzie Dern dominating her for 25 minutes. And she also proved to be very difficult to take down throughout the years. And now it's reached a point where I'd say she is a wrestling threat. She's an above average UFC wrestler as a strawweight. And she's capable of mixing it up with anybody, even Yasmin Lucindo. I still think if Lucindo is to win, it's by hitting at least 2 takedowns and slowing down this fight. Don't get me wrong. But I think Angela Hill is going to be outworking her, stopping her from letting that happen, maybe even mixing in takedowns on her own, but also roughing her up in the clinch and hanging with her at range. I think Yasmin Lucindo is a very good fighter, but I think Angela Hill, again, at 40 years old, is in her prime. She's coming off 2 tight decision fights, Ketlin Souza and the loss against Tabitha Ricci, which, whatever, I thought Ricci won the fight, but it was still close. But before that, she had a really good streak going, with the only loss being to Mackenzie Dern. And again, that was a fight where if you had told me Angela Hill would be dominated by Mackenzie Dern and lose a 5-round decision and not get finished, is the point of that, I wouldn't have believed you. But she really has evolved. And I think look, it's going to take more than not getting finished to beat Yasmin Lucindo, obviously. But I think Angela Hill is going to be able to handle anything that comes her way and work harder to achieve a victory here. She's a 40-year-old workhorse. Yasmin Lucindo, look, I'm not going to harp on Angela Hill's losses to Randa Marcos and whoever, and I'm not going to harp on Yasmin Lucindo's losses back in 2019 and earlier, because she was like a teenager when these fights happened. Her 2 losses that are relevant are against Yasmin Haragui in her UFC debut, where she was still very young then, 3 years ago. But that was a good test, and she handled herself well, especially down the stretch, but she was clearly outpointed. And her last loss was to Amanda Lemos, where, yeah, it wasn't the greatest fight for her. And she, I thought, didn't fight wisely, and she allowed herself to be slowed down and pinned down, and she lost a decision to a very good fighter. And here I'm picking Angela Hill to kind of match that performance of Amanda Lemos. I don't know if it'll be as grappling heavy, but I know Hill can mix it up, and I know Hill can can hang with fighters like Lemos because she already has. Lost a very tight decision, but definitely she's on the same level. And yeah, Angela Hill, she's the underdog here. I would have been picking her to win if she was the favorite anyway, but I'm much more comfortable picking her to win as a plus 160 underdog, and certainly I've bet on her. I've got her winning by decision. I think once the props drop, it won't make much of a difference. Where I'd rather cover the everything by betting on the money line anyway. But yeah, Angela Hill is the pick, and I've got her winning by decision. Next up in the co-main event of the evening, we have O'Day Osborne stepping up on short notice to fight Steve Erceg. My prediction here is Erceg wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by submission. And the basis for the prediction is I think he's the much more dangerous guy. I think he's an incredibly dangerous submission artist, even though he hasn't been able to show that since he hit the UFC. But here, even though he's fighting a superior athlete and he's going to have to overcome that athleticism with the striking and timing and things, if not takedowns, I still think he's going to be too much for O'Day. Once he slows him down and catches up to him in one way or another, I think Erceg's going to be too dangerous. O'Day is going to be a 3 to 4 or 4 to 1 underdog. It looks like the odds aren't available on DraftKings, but I think there's upside with O'Day Osborne despite the shitty circumstances and the shitty record as of late. Yeah, he's a vulnerable guy, but I think O'Day has athleticism on Steve Erceg, where he's going to be moving much better, and that can help him win the striking battle. And I also think he's got power on his side. He's definitely got power. He showed it in his last fight, knocking out Luis Gurule. And Steve Erceg's been very tough historically, but Kai Kara France did knock him out last year. So there might be room for that equalizer of O'Day Osborne. O'Day is really good as a grappler too, offensively. He's really comfortable off his back, got a good guard. But I think the submission game belongs to Steve Erceg here. And I think he wins with an opportunistic submission where he doesn't have to methodically dominate him like Asu Amabayev. But I still think, even if they are grappling on the ground and it's position for position, Erceg's getting the better of him. And yeah, Erceg, of course, is probably going to be in better shape, considerably better shape. But O'Day, he's definitely got advantages here. I think maybe I'd look to play him winning by knockout or decision, put a sprinkle on that line. But I'm definitely going with Erceg. And once the props drop, I will look for his submission lines and his finish lines altogether. Erceg, of course, Osborne's been knocked out a few times as well. He got knocked out by Manel Kopp and Tyson Nam, fucking monsters. And Steve Erceg is not on their level, but Steve Erceg is still a very sharp technical striker. And he's cashed in on fragile chins before, like Matt Schnell here and some other guys in the past. But I think, there's room for that, but that would be a real Hail Mary of a finish. I think that's much less likely than him getting a submission. I think Steve Erceg wins this with a submission. I think he's going to crowd O'Day, try to slow him down and corner him. And I think he's going to force some action and find that neck. So Erceg is the pick. The odds aren't available, but I'll look for some reasonable bets that cover my predictions. All right, in a late addition to the card, we have Eric McConico taking on Cody Brundage, apparently. My prediction for this fight is Cody Brundage wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by knockout. And I'm not too confident in that prediction. Eric McConico's got 3 losses, and they are all by knockout, but I've only seen one of them in his last fight in February against Nursultan Ruzaboyev, who's a beast in the UFC. He's been knocked out twice before that, though. This guy, Andre Walker, and this guy, Dejan Kachik. Both guys are dangerous, if nothing else, from having seen their records, but I still would like to see what those losses looked like. And even if they were both devastating knockout losses, they were both in 2019. And of course, he took a break for COVID, came back 3 years later, and he's been active ever since. And the only guy to get him out of there, again, is Nursultan Ruzaboyev. And he's got some good wins here. This guy, Tyler Ray, and this guy, Maki Patolo, even though he's got a shitty record, he was in the UFC 5 years ago or so. Although he's got a knack for getting finished in round 3, and that's exactly what Eric McConico did to him. Got him out of there with a head kick and punches, head kick and body punches, really. But still, without having seen the knockout losses, I have to have doubt in his durability. And Cody Brundage, not that he's the best anywhere, but he's good everywhere, and he's definitely got power. And I think here he's going to be able to shine in this matchup. That's the prediction. Of course, with him, there's a lot of downside. I've got the same doubts that you do in Cody Brundage, even though his record is prettier than it should be. He actually got that loss overturned against Mansour Abdul Malik. It actually should have been a draw. I'm sure the basis for that decision, which by the way was overturned like a week ago, was the fact that round three was nothing but a headbutt and a barrage. But yeah, he won round two. I thought he looked pretty gritty up until that schmaz finish in round three. But he ends up taking Abdul Malik, to a draw, which might look great on paper moving forward. And he also had this horseshit with Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Yeah, he stayed afloat with horseshit. The disqualification over Jacob Malkoon. But he's also gotten legitimate victories, like his knockout over Zachary Reese with the slam and the TKO over Julian Marquez, which was an incredible one-round fight. He also knocked out Trayshawn Gore in his previous victory back in 2022. So he's definitely got a spotty record, Cody Brundage. Even without the horse shit, he's been defeated enough to have doubt, but he's been defeated against good fighters. I mean, aside from SD Dumas, where he kind of just made the same mistake in all three rounds. He could have won the round, then he jumped a guillotine and got put on the ground where he couldn't get up. But uh, he's definitely not fighting Rodolfo Vieira here or Mikhail Oleksiejczuk on the feet. Eric McConico can handle himself, and it's good to see him get victories down the stretch like that round three finish. But I still think he's going to be a step behind here against Cody Brundage. But still, if Cody Brundage isn't able to close the show, he's got a knack for fading. And this guy who put away Mackie Pitolo and outlasted this guy, Tyler Ray. He had a tough first round and then took over in rounds 2 and 3. Round 3 was pretty close, but he still won. I think he has a shot at outlasting and finishing Cody Brundage. So I'll look to see what the odds are before I play anything, but I'll definitely play a finish here because I think if Cody Brundage wins, knockout is far and away the most likely outcome. And I think if he loses, Eric McConico, who's a grappler first and foremost, but can also make shit happen on the feet, I think he puts away Cody when Cody gets tired. So yeah, the under will be a play probably. Depends on what the odds look like. And my pick is Cody Brundage. So depending on what those odds look like, that might be a play. Okay, in the main event of the evening, we have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Dolidze. My prediction here is Fluffy wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by round 4 TKO. And I'm not too confident in that specific prediction. I do favor him to win, and Roman Dolidze has never been finished, so a decision is certainly possible here. But Anthony Hernandez is a 5 round fighter. And I think with these extra rounds to work, he can shine like few others can. And even if you've never been finished, the chances go up when you're fighting Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy, he's relentless. This is going to be striker versus grappler, pretty much. Roman Dolidze is a grappler first and foremost, but Anthony Hernandez knows one style, and that's striking his way into takedowns and rinsing and repeating and advancing on you as much as he can each time. And he usually makes gains and gains, and then eventually he's too much for you. Roman Dolidze, I'd say his primary path to victory is going through what I believe is the distinct weakness of Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, his body. Hernandez has been beaten twice, and both of them I would attribute to body shots. The Kevin Holland body shot knockout certainly was a part of that. He got hit with a big knee to the body. And Marcus Perez, he got him out of there with an anaconda choke, but he got the ball rolling with a body shot on Fluffy. And of course, last year we saw Michel Pereira hit him with a body shot, which I predicted him to win with a body shot. And he had him hurt early, but he wasn't able to close the show. And then what happened? He drowned him in round 5. And that's pretty much what I'm picking to happen here with Dolidze, even though Dolidze is much more competent on the ground. But yeah, Dolidze, he's He's only got 3 losses. They're decisions, all 3 of them. He lost to Nasruddin Imavov and Marvin Vettori, close fights. And then early in his UFC career, another close one against Trevin Giles. The Imavov fight, it's a majority decision, but that was with a point deduction. Largely, Imavov got the better of him and started off kicking his ass. I thought that was a very impressive defeat, so to speak, for Roman Dolidze. But still, yeah, despite the close scorecards, it wasn't that close. Imavov definitely got the better of him. And Marvin Vettori, look, he narrowly beat him there, but I feel like Dolidze clearly beat him in the rematch just a few months ago, which was a great sign. Not that Marvin Vettori is consistently improving, but it showed improvement for Roman Dolidze, even at 37 years old. I guess he was 36 at the time. But yeah, Dolidze, he's really dangerous. He's a grappler first and foremost, as far as his disciplines go. But in MMA, he is much more known as a striker. You see here, he's got 8 knockouts and his 15 wins. We saw him knock out Kyle Dawkins, smashing his face. And most impressively, we saw him TKO Jack Hermanson, which was totally a grappling victory, and an incredible grappling victory, tying up his legs in a surfboard type position, if I can use pro wrestling parlance, and he put him away on the ground. And Jack is a monstrous grappler. So yeah, look, I mean, he could put away Fluffy on the ground. Fluffy's been beaten there, but I think Fluffy is going to be in his face. I don't think the takedowns are going to come easily at first, but I think he's going to push through and hit that takedown. And once he does, I think they're only going to come more easily. And Fluffy's going to advance and eventually drown him. Although, again, my stoppage prediction, I'm not married to. I think he could win a decision, even with 5 rounds to work. I think he could win a decision here, certainly. But yeah, the pick is Fluffy. I have not bet on him. I don't know if I'll bet on him at all. Of course, I'll throw sprinkles on his props because I am a degenerate. And the over under, I think, is set about right. 3.5 rounds. That's in the middle of round 4, and it's pretty much a toss up. That's about how I'd have this fight. But yeah, I'm going with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, and I'm going with him getting a stoppage. That's it for this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and donate to your favorite charity. Actually, fuck that. Just put it on a fight. You know, put it on a fight that you have no confidence in. Put it on Angela Hill getting another submission victory. That's what you do.